Anybody left-handed today? Is anybody left-handed? Are you left-handed?
Yeah, I mean, I really am.
Well, you're a switch hitter. Okay, anybody left-handed? Are you left-handed over there? You're left-handed? I love to have a lefty in the house. That's your mom, right? Next to you there? All right, turn to her right there and give her, just put your hand on her hand like that. Like that, and look at her in the eye and say, my hand for your battles. And say back to your daughter, my hand for your battles. And that's for all of us today. Thank you. That's awesome. Thank you, Mom. Thank you so much, sweet daughter. My hands for your battles. I had to find a lefty because you turn, and turn in the room, you got to get that hand going. My hands for your battles. My hands for your battles. A commitment to Christ, the Christian life, is much more than just a commitment to Christ himself. It starts there. You played a board game, where it says go, and you go around. What's one of those board games? Monopoly, right. You're just hoping not to go to jail. And you want to collect the $200. But on the game of, let's switch it up, life, the little car with little stick people in there, little car. The game of life. In the game of life, the starting point is the moment you meet Jesus. It's getting to know him and surrendering your life to him. But the Christian life is much more than just commitment to Christ. It includes a commitment to other Christians. It includes a commitment to other Christians. An eagle is built for what? Fly, right? When I finally meet people who say, I believe in Jesus, they know Christians, they are a Christian, but if you sense in them there's no commitment to other Christians, I always feel like I'm talking to an eagle that never learned how to fly. Like, you're beautiful, you're an eagle, you have the wingspan, it's amazing, you're perfect, you got it, but you never fly because the lift comes when other people lift your arms. When other people lift your arms, that's where the lift comes. And how you lift other people's arms, how they lift yours, it's so much more than just that start. Because in the game of life, the people that learn how to lift others' arms and the people who allow others to lift their arms are the ones who make it around the board. But the people who don't are the ones who barely get out of the starting gates. And so today, this whole message, my hands for your battles, is about learning how to become a person who looks at your hands and says, it's not just for me. It's not just for me. And so we're going to look in the Bible at Exodus 17. It's another battle. And this time, Moses is alive in this passage. And Exodus chapter 17, starting in verse 8. And Joshua is the lead commander of the army on the field. And they come up against the Amalekites. Can you say it with me? Then you got to say it real rough and mean, like the Amalekites. I mean, it's like who's the team? What's the team that you hate? The Amalekites? You hate the Amalekites? Is there like a football team? You just hate them? Like Beth is Alabama, right? You don't like Alabama? Beth looks at me funny. It's like somebody would say, those Seminoles. I see it. I'm messing with Beth over there. But it goes so much deeper. It would be the idea of saying, like, the 9/11 hijackers. The Amalekites. came and attacked Israel at Rephidim. Moses says to Joshua, go get them, boys. No, he says, choose some of our men and go out to fight the Amalekites. And here's the battle plan. Here's the strategy. Tomorrow, I will stand on top of the hill with the rod of God in my hands. So Joshua fought the Amalekites as Moses has ordered. And Moses, Aaron, and Hur, H-U-R, Hur, went to the top of the hill. As long as Moses held up his hands, the Israelites were winning. But whenever he lowered his hands, the Amalekites were winning. When Moses' hands grew tired, they took a stone and put it underneath him, and he sat on it. Aaron and Hur held his hands up, one on one side, one on the other, so that his hands remained steady till sunset. So Joshua overcame the Amalekite army with the sword. Then the Lord says to Moses, write on a scroll as something to be remembered, and make sure that Joshua hears it, because I will completely blot out the name of Amalek from under heaven. Moses built an altar and called it, the Lord is my banner. He said, because hands were lifted up against the throne of the Lord will be at war against the Amalekites from generation to generation. Anybody see I'm sure you did, the recent kind of upheaval on the tennis court with Serena? You see that? I'm sure you have an opinion. You know, I look at that and I think, I don't know anything about tennis. I don't know anything about like what it's like to be a woman and play tennis, but I'm all for you, girl. Like, she's got to be is she like the greatest women's tennis player ever? Amazing. Amazing. I don't know what you think, but I don't want to get into the outcome, but I want to get into the process there. Because in tennis, evidently, we all learn something. In tennis, you can't get coaching. You can't get coaching during the tennis match. And so they're looking, accused you of getting coaching, all those kind of things. But in tennis, you're playing, but it's all on you. All the strategy is on you. All the figuring out of the opponent is on you. All the remembering of like what that opponent can do, what they can't do, how their backhand is, what their last statistics of their matches were, like how that they come to the court, how they come to the net. Everything is on you. You can't receive help from anybody at all. But do you know people who play life that way? They play life that way. You might be somebody who's played life that way at times. And when it comes to the Christian sport, we got to think about like it's not like tennis. It's a lot more like boxing, where there's a corner, where people are yelling encouragement around the side, where everything that's done is done. You can get every kind of help you can. Unless they get in the ring with you, it's legal in boxing. And really in boxing, they come back to the corner and the boxing coach is there, the coordinators are there, but there's this one guy in the ring. And if you know boxing, if you follow boxing, on the inside, the corner man in boxing is famous. The corner man is famous. Unless you have the right corner man, there's a level of boxing that you can't go beyond. And they're kind of half coach, half daddy, half medic. Half medic. They can throw in the towel to stop the fight. They can stop the bleeding. And they say encouragement, motivation. They know your psychology. They know the psychology of your opponent. And in those seconds before the match comes, they give you advice. In between every ring, in between every round, the corner man. It's got to be that we look at the Christian life a lot more like boxing than tennis. And you got to ask yourself this morning, am I trying to win a boxing match with a tennis racket? And no corner man? And this message could be along the lines of like, make sure that you get support, and we always hear the system like, make sure you build your support system and, allow people to be there for you, let people into your life. That's not this message today. This message is not from the perspective of Joshua on the battlefield. It's not from the perspective of Moses as the great man of God. It's from the perspective of the two corner men. His brother and the priest, Aaron. Somebody that you think like, if he's not there, something's wrong. And then there's this other figure that we don't know that much about. Hur, H-U-R, Hur. And I'd say really in this story, it's not Joshua, not Moses, probably not even Aaron that we need to look through his eyes. But let's look through her eyes. And I like it that it's H-U-R, but it sounds like to us, her. Because thank God for all the women who are the best corner men in the world. But let's look through the eyes of her, whether it's a him or a her. And that's your eyes today. And say it again. My hands for your battle. Just say it out loud a few times. My hands for your battle. Say it one more time. My hands for your battle. And let's go into the passage here. I wanted to boil this down, really boil it down, kind of just to the thing that we could take away today if you don't remember anything else. And like, how do we make it simple? How do we make it straightforward? And this is what God showed me is this. You can't always pick what battles you're in. People say pick your battles. But you can pick whose corner you're in. And people say, well, you better pick your battles. Don't fight every battle. You better pick your battles. But are there some battles that you've been in or that you are in that you think, I didn't pick this? I didn't choose this battle? Even after you think, well, I did something and it caused something, I would like to now unpick this battle. But I've already picked it, so now I can't unpick it, so I still can't pick my battles. That was the young me, the old me that picked this battle, and the present, current me has got to fight the one that the dumb me picked. You can't always pick what battles you're in. But that's kind of even a focus on yourself anyway, isn't it? Isn't that a focus on yourself? And in this game of the Christian life and the Christian sport, you're not the tennis player. You're not the boxer today. You're the corner man today. You're her today. And her didn't pick what battle he was in. He picked whose corner he was in. And he becomes part of this great victory story. And what's his job in the battle? His job is Moses' hands are not going to fall. I mean, I'm not in charge of the left arm, but I'm in charge of the right arm. I'm not in charge of the battle. You feel this? I'm not in charge of the swords. I'm not in charge of when somebody says charge. I'm not in charge of anything else. I'm not in charge of sitting on the rock. I'm not in charge of the staff of God. I'm not even in charge of the left hand. I just got the one hand. Whose one arm do you have today? Whose one arm are you holding up today? Because beyond anything else, our world and our Jesus looks to us and says this of believers. You look like a Christian when you're holding up somebody's arm. I believe you're a believer. Like they might not be a believer, but could they believe you're a believer? I believe you're a believer. when I see that at least you have the right arm. Whose arm are you holding up? And how do you pick them? Like, you can't pick your battles, but you got to pick the right arm, right? And I don't mean just the right arm, but the right arm on the right person. Have you picked some people to hold up their arms before, and they didn't want to hold up their arms? Have you picked some people to hold up their arms before, and you realize, like, I'm holding them up, but why are they even in this fight? I've got the right arm, but I don't have the right person. I've got the right arm, but I don't have the right person, and I sure don't have the right battle. How do you pick the right person? How do you pick the right battle? Let's go back to verse 8. And it says, the Amalekites came and attacked the Israelites at Rephidim. Now, look, one of the things is this. Israel didn't attack. Who attacked? The Amalekites attacked. Well, look at this and say, like, wait a minute. Like, one sign of a person who's the right arm is held up is not the person who's always attacking. You know, a person who's like, they act like a victim, but really other people are the victim. Oh, I don't have to even explain that very much, do I? You got that, right? Like, if you're always everybody's victim, probably really you're not the victim. The Amalekites came and attacked Israel at Rephidim. Now, the Hebrew word Rephidim means baluster. And I think, like, okay, now what does baluster mean? Some of you might know what baluster means. But balusters are those vertical poles that, like, hold up the railing on stairs as you were to go up. Or they're like, you see like a front porch, and it's got all of the railing across the front porch, and it's got vertical like lines, like a picket fence, but these are the pickets on the picket fence, but it's not a fence, it's a whole wall to take care of things. Balusters are sequential columns that hold up something. And Israel would name, the people of God would name a place by what happened there. They're very practical, tactile, and task-oriented when it came to names. And so they would look at this place and say, what is it called? It's called the place of support. The place where the balusters of Aaron and Hur hold up the arms of the man who was holding up the rod of God in prayer. And so they attacked Israel at Rephidim. Moses says to Joshua, now listen to this, choose, whoa, wait a minute. Say it with me, say, choose some of our men and go out to fight the Amalekites. My continual mistake that I've made in relationships over the years is this one thing. You may be like me and you may make this mistake a lot, but maybe you don't. But I tend to love to help people. Is that bad? Right, that's not bad. Let me tell you what then I do that's bad, okay? Then I will tend to turn and depend on the people that I have helped. Right? And let me tell you what's crazy about that is this. Can that happen? Could it be a good thing that the people you help you? Is that a good thing? Yeah. But by the virtue of that they needed all your help in the past might mean that they're not the right person to help you in the future. And on top of that, you think they owe you something. It's easier emotionally and in your pride and your ego to get help from somebody that you've helped in the past because you feel like it's not that big of a thing, they owe me. It's not that big of a thing, but to accept help, to accept support from somebody that you've never done anything for, that takes a lot of humility. That might take more humility than you have. And if you keep going to the people who can't support you to support you, then you need to look at this passage where it says, Moses says to Joshua, choose. Like like God chose Moses, right? Good choice, right? God chose Joshua, right? Good choice, right? Now, but what if God would have said, well, I choose Moses, but Moses says, you know what? I want to be fair. I always choose Joshua, but hers really helped me out a lot. In fact, I've been helping her out a lot. I've been counseling her in her marriage a lot. I've been helping out her. I've loaned her $1,000. And really, I had to let her a chance to pay back all the things that all the community of Israel has done for her. But God didn't say to choose her, even though her was part of the plan. Her wasn't the man at the time. So God chooses Moses. Moses chooses Joshua. And what does Joshua do? Choose some men and go out to fight the Amalekites. He chose the ones for that battle. This is how I fight my battles. I choose people that are the people for that battle. And sometimes you can know it's not the right battle if you don't have people to choose for that battle. But there's times at which it is the right battle. You just chose the wrong people for the right battle. It says, choose some of our men and go out and fight the Amalekites. Tomorrow I will stand. Here's another characteristic of the right person to choose. Is you choose a person who has a plan. I like that. Choose a person who has a plan. See, the person you can help the most is the person who's already heard from God, is already listening to God about what direction they're to go. I love Matthew 6:33 that says, seek ye first his kingdom and his righteousness, and all these other things will be added to you. He says, tomorrow I will stand at the top of the hill with the rod of God in my hands. Right man, right place, right tool. But sometimes what we do is this. We pick people to support who have absolutely no plan. And then what do? We get mad at them for not having a plan. My hands for your battles doesn't mean my hands for any old battles. Because if you keep experiencing defeat in your life, it might be because you took good hands and put them on the wrong people in the wrong battles. How do I pick them? It says, tomorrow I will stand at the top of the hill with the rod of God in my hands. Now this is so powerful too. Because Moses had the active, evident presence of God's will in his hands. How can you tell if it's the right person in the right battle? Look at what's in their hands. If you see somebody that's trying to put something of God in their hands, I like to tell people who are dating, don't put your hand in their hand unless they've had a Bible in their hand. Isn't that great? If they don't ever have a Bible in their hand, then they probably won't treat your hand so good. Tomorrow I will stand on top of the hill with the rod of God in my hands. See, this was so evident. This is the rod of God that Moses had as his shepherd staff. It stood in for his identity. It stood in for his future. Because he was a prince of Egypt, but he ended up as a shepherd on the backside of Egypt after he had encountered failure after failure after failure. He was thrown out of the royal family, ran from the government. He was out living like somebody, I'm going to live off the grid. Moses was off the grid. He was off people's minds. He was out of the newspaper. He was as good as dead. He was better than dead. He was forgotten. And he just was taken in, and he took up with some people who just took care of animals on the backside of the desert, far from his home and family. And he was there with his sheep. It's not even his sheep. his father-in-law's sheep. And I'm telling you, the Bible makes me laugh sometimes because his father-in-law was Jethro, and it's not hard to remember that his father-in-law was Jethro because, like, if you ever raised up watching TV in the 70s, there's only one Jethro that matters on TV. He's the double knot spy. He's a short order cook. He loves Miss Jane. But there's only one Jethro that matters on Nick at Night. But there's only one Jethro that matters in the Bible. Not even his sheep. And God appeared to Moses face to face in a burning bush and said, "What's that in your hand, Moses?" How do you pick the right people to put your hands into their life? You look at what's in their hands. And the first thing that happens, God calls out in their hands, "What's in your hands, Moses? What's in your hands?" He said, "It's my staff, it's my rod." And he threw it down. He said, "Throw it down, Moses. Throw down your identity, throw down your life." And it became a snake, and he picked it up and it became a staff again. And after that time, it's this whole miraculous passage in the book of Exodus. But after that time, God said, "You never call that again your staff." And for all of Moses' career after that, he always only called it the rod of God, not the staff. Not my staff, not my shepherd's staff, the rod of God. And the point here is this: find someone in a fight worth winning. Like, is it a fight worth winning? And a fight that's worth winning is always a fight that is for God's people, God's kingdom, God's purposes, because God's purposes always prevail, but they don't always prevail through every person. God's purposes always prevail, but they don't always prevail in every family. They don't always prevail in every job situation. They don't always prevail with every employee, with every boss, with every spouse, with every child. And so in your life, sit back and say this sometimes. Say, "God, who is it that's doing your work? I'm going to put my hands on their staff. I'm going to make sure that their staff is risen high." A single mama here today is doing God's work with those babies. A single dad here today is doing God's work with those babies. Somebody here today that's just trying to get enough money to go on a mission trip is doing God's work with their life. Somebody who's trying to pay off their credit card bills and trying to get in a place where they can bless God and bless people and tithe freely and be excited about their financial future, that person is doing God's work in God's kingdom. That person who cooks a meal and takes it to somebody's in need, that person needs their hands lifted up and lifted up high, don't they? That person who's serving students and teaching and loving them and showing up for them, they need their hands lifted up high, right? That person that had somebody walk out on them while they're trying to build their family, that's the right person with the right hands at the right time. Say, "God, who is it that's doing your work, God? Who's in a fight worth winning, God?" Because there are some fights, even if you win, you still lose. There's some people that no matter how many times they win, they're still a victim. Find somebody in a fight worth winning. I'm going to skip forward a little bit today. Verse 10 says, "So Joshua fought the Amalekites as Moses has ordered, and Moses, Aaron, and Hur went to the top of the hill. As long as Moses held up his hands, the Israelites were winning." Can't you see him right there right now? He's got his hands. He's an old man, right? Even the youngest, strongest man. Like, you hold your hands in the air. How long can you hold your hands in the air? 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 30 minutes, maybe? Powerful Moses. Can you see him as like 80 years old with bulging biceps? Awesome aerobic capacity. I mean, this was a desert mountain man. He could climb the mountains in the desert. He could cross the rivers. He's a powerful old man of God. He could wield that big staff of God. He could give out orders. He was powerful. but it was his prayers that had the most power. And the reason for the staff being held in the air is because he's saying, you go fight, I'm going to go pray for you. But my prayer for you is a bigger fight for you than your fight is on the field. How do you hold up somebody's hands? Lord God, forgive me for the times I've offered assistance without enough prayer. How do you hold up somebody's hands? Whose hands do you hold up? It's saying, God, I'm going to lift up the person who's praying. Lift up the person who's praying. And this point is this. See the whole story. Because they went up to the mountain, right? Where they could see everything. I've heard chess masters say it like this. You got to see the whole board. You got to see the whole board. They can see 16 strategic steps away. They can see the beginning and the end of the whole chess match after the first or second move. See the whole board. To get up above things. To get up above the situation. On the first holiday coming up soon, on Columbus Day, I want to take all the juniors and seniors, the high school juniors and seniors in our church, not wait to the end of school, but I want to do it all throughout the year. And I told them I want to take them up to Peachtree Plaza in Atlanta, go to the very top and get in the Sundial restaurant and take your junior and senior high school self and sit there and see one of the greatest cities in the world as the restaurant spins around. Because sometimes you have to get up to the top of the tower to see the whole board. And you not only have to get up to the elevation, but you also have to look all the way around. And when you have an Aaron and a Hur, what is Aaron and Hur's job? They are the corner man, right? And the corner man is saying, look, I see this guy punching. I see the way he punches. He's a counter puncher. I see what he's doing. He's leaning to his left a little bit. And when you're somebody's Hur holding up their right arm, you're just praying, God, let us see the weakness of the enemy, God. Isn't that a great job to be in somebody's life? Not to tell them the strength of their enemy, but to tell them the weakness of their enemy. To tell them, like, look, you get out there, you have a devastating right hook. You have a devastating right hook. After the fifth punch, he drops his arm usually, and then you go in with your devastating right hook. And if you have a husband or wife or children or friends, you go into their life today, you're holding up their arms in prayer. You get up in the morning and you say, look, you get out there today because you have a devastating right hook. You have a powerful plan today. See the whole board. See the whole battle. Get up above it. The rest of verse 12 says this. When Moses' hands grew tired, they took a stone and put it under him, and he sat on it. You know what this means? Give them rest, not advice. How many times have you ever felt blessed by someone's unsolicited advice? You felt really blessed. Yeah, a couple times it can happen. But how many of you here today has felt blessed by somebody's unsolicited rest? You feel me with that? Have you ever gotten tired of people telling you how you should be doing things? But you know, we get a bad name as Christians for doing that, right? Because we got this book of instructions. And it's awesome to have this book of instructions. It's wonderful. And people just need to know it. But we throw our seeds beside the road a lot of times, don't we? In fact, you know the old saying, it's an old good saying because it's true. People don't care how much you know until they know how much you care, right? I think one of the things that drive people away from awesome believers the most is all the torrential downpour of unsolicited Christian advice giving that happens in the world. Because what does it sound like? It sounds like, Sounds like you're stupid. You have no idea what to do. I'm here to tell you. And what about this in life? What if we were able just to say, God, I need your rest in my life. You know what the problem with that is? You can't give what you don't have. And many times in your life, you can't give someone else a rock to sit on when you don't have a rock to sit on yourself. There might be a rock to sit on, but you're still trying to earn the victory so much that when somebody says, sit down and rest, you say, no, I won't sit down and rest. I've got to do it myself. Can't you see Aaron and her saying, come on, Moses. Come on, Moses, have a seat. Come on, Moses, have a seat. When Moses' hands grew tired, they took a stone and he sat on it. And he gave him rest. Yesterday I was calling people. Just calling people who I love in our church and just trying to connect with people. I'd always say, how are you doing? What's going on? But I called one guy and the voice came back over the phone. And he said, Pastor, how are you doing? And it wasn't that nobody ever says that. It was how he said it. You know, some people say things and, you know, they mean it, but other people say things and I don't know what it was, but the anointing and the love and the Spirit of God was on those words. And I let the guy have it with how I was doing. I let him have it with how I was doing. I didn't cuss at anybody. I didn't fuss about anything. I just said, man, there's been some pain. There's been some difficulty. Let me tell you about it. But you know what happens when somebody does that for you? You don't feel further away from them when they do that. When they actually are honest, right? Like I was actually honest yesterday. You don't feel further away from them. You feel closer to them. It's the vulnerability of the willingness to sit on the rock while somebody holds your hands up that makes you know that you're not in it alone. And no matter what happens out on the battlefield, you win when you hold up somebody else's arms, right? At that point, it's not even about Joshua's victory with the sword anymore. It's about 3 men on a hillside that are willing to die for each other. This last Wednesday night with the new men's purity group called Conquer, we had 11 men there. It was awesome. It was powerful. It was amazing. And we were there and we're like, guys, we got to hold each other up. There's still room if you want to join. Guys, we got to hold each other up. 3 men on a hillside won the battle for hundreds of people. See, your history is what you've done in the past. Your legacy is what you do now that affects your future. And when you hold up the hands, the arms of the person who's holding the rod of God, who's looking for the plan of God, if you just take care of somebody when they're in need, you help that person. But if you can find a Moses, right? And your Moses is anybody with a fight worth winning, that's your Moses. When you hold up the right hand or the left hand of your Moses, even when they're weak and even when they have to sit down, or even if they've disappointed you by their lack of strength, when you hold up their hands, you bless hundreds of people. You give a legacy to future generations. When you hold up the hands of the ones who's holding up everybody else. You see that? And we tend to want to hold up the hands of somebody down here, don't we? It looks like they need our help. But when you turn here and say, that's a heck of a man right there. That's an amazing woman right there. I'm going over to him and I'm holding up his hands. Because I know he's got something in his hands. He's in a fight worth winning. And he's got the plan of God in his life. She's got the plan of God in her life. And in verse 12 it says, Aaron and her held up his hands, one on one side, one on the other. See, even when you hold up the hands, you're not doing it alone. When you hold up those arms, you're not doing it alone. And so the direction is up. We're going to end there today. The direction is up. And you're able to look in their life and say these words, there is always a solution, Matthew 7. You'll know what to do at the right time, James 1. You're going to thrive no matter what happens, Philippians chapter 4. You'll have the resources to do what needs to be done, Philippians 4. All your mistakes will be turned to good, Romans 8:28. Just to be able to hold up those arms to somebody that says, yes, you made a mistake, but God can make your mistake turn into good. I know you don't have the resources right now, but God will give the resources for what needs to be done. Be able to look into somebody's life. I'm holding up your arms and I'm saying, there's always a solution. There's always a solution. There's always a solution. Can you stand up with me today as we close today? There's always a solution. I will always know what to do. I will thrive no matter what happens. I will always have the resources to do what needs to be done. All my mistakes will be turned to good. This is how I fight my battles. I fight my battles by putting my hands for your battles. I fight my battles by placing my hands there for your battles. I don't know if I always have a fight worth winning in my life. I'm looking around sometimes and I don't know which battle to choose. But I can look at your life, and I can look at your life, and I can look at your life, and I can say, I'm holding up her hands. I'm holding up his hands. I'm holding up his hands. And sometimes they will bless you and turn around and hold up yours. But it doesn't always come from the same people. And so let's just hold up our arms again. And if you're near somebody that you just feel like, I want to hold up their hands, reach over and grab them on the elbow and push that hand up. If you're near somebody today and you say, I want to hold up their hands, reach over and just push those hands up today. This is how I fight my battle.